Okay, part three. I'll try to make it quick because I know I'm rambling now. This is bad. So, anyway, so part three. So, after I had broke down that night and I had cried to him, I woke up the next day and I went for a run and I was trying to be productive and I figured out where I was going to move and I was going to move that next weekend and it was like set. So, I had tried to call him. I woke up that morning and I had a text message from him and it was like at 1:20 or 1:30 in the morning and it just said I love you and I was like, oh, that was just like him, he was like so thoughtful like that, always just like, with those sorts of things. So that's all it said and I was like, oh. So I went around my day and I did my business. I went for a run and I was talking to my mom and I was like, I'm kind of worried, like I haven't heard from him all day. I wonder, I hope he's okay, like I wonder what's up. She was like, well, maybe he's somewhere where he can't get service. And I was like, well, why? Like, I don't get it. And so eventually she let slip that he was driving down to Arizona to surprise me because he knew how upset I was. And he had just decided that he was going to drive down and surprise me and help me move. And I was like, it was a Wednesday, and so he was going to show up on like the Thursday and help me move over the weekend. And I was like so excited. Like I couldn't wait. I was so stoked, I remember. And so I was like all this stuff. And then I went to class and I was in class and we were split up for like a partner thing. And so I remember, these two people came in and were talking to my teacher and she like pointed at me and they came and they got me and they brought me to the office, the school office, and they were like, your mom wants you to call her. And I remember thinking, oh man, like something's happened. Maybe my dad's in the hospital. Maybe something happened to my brother. I was like so nervous. And so I called my mom and I was talking to her and I was like, Mom, and she was like, she was like in tears. She was sobbing. She was like, I'm on the plane. I'm on the plane now. We're about to leave. We're taking off in 15 minutes. I'm gonna be in Phoenix in 2 hours. And I was like, what's wrong? What's going on? And she was like, Maneve is dead. And I remember I hung up the phone and I threw it across the room. And I just sat there and I started pulling at my hair. And I just sat there and I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. And I remember the guy that had come to get me picked up my phone and he was like, I'm gonna need to call your mom back. I need to tell her you're okay. And I was like, no, it's okay. I'll do it. So I called her back and I was sobbing and I was like, no, it's not true. There's a mistake. You're mistaken. You've made a mistake. No. And she was like, yeah. He was in an accident and they called me because he was driving down in her car. So they called her because it was her car. And she had given them the info for his sister. Oh, I don't want to cry. I don't want to ruin my makeup. So, yeah, and I don't remember anything after that, it's so weird. I think I went to my friend's house, and then I packed a backpack, and my friend drove me to Phoenix, and I met her at the airport, and, we flew back to Colorado, and, oh man, and so, yeah, we flew back to Colorado, and, and so I went to his funeral, and I met his sister and his parents at the funeral, and, since this day, his family and I have actually had a really good relationship, which is funny, because they hated me when he was alive, but now, we have a really good relationship, and so after that, obviously, I had no idea who I was, and so, of course, again, I got really heavily back into alcohol, heavily, I, eventually, after I had pushed a lot of friends away, I was in a horrible spot. I had the worst friends. I was drinking way too much, and after I was in this really bad spot, I realized that I couldn't go on like this. This was bad. He was not happy with me. And I realized that. I was like, Munib is not happy. This is not what he wants me to do. He wants me to go on. Like, he wants me to be happy. Like, he wants me to, like, you know, be a better person. He doesn't want to see me, like, you know, drinking my life away, like waking up at 3 o'clock every day in the afternoon and then, you know, going out and drinking again. Like, that's not what he wants. So I read this book, and it was called Why Bad Things Happen to Good People, and it's written by a rabbi. I forget his name, but I read that book, and in it talked a lot about religion, not Judaism, but like religion and God. And I read that book, and when I was done with it, that was the book that convinced me that God exists. God exists, which was huge for me because I had been raised atheist. I didn't believe in God up until that point at all. So that was the book that really convinced me, you know, God exists. God really does exist. You know, it's not all made up. Like, God really exists. And so I was like, you know, I didn't really know. I was like, well, you know, God exists, but what does that mean? Like, I wasn't sure where to go from there. And I remember it was a couple weeks or a month or two after he died that he had been living at my parents' house. So it was a couple weeks or a month or two after that I was brave enough to go back and go into his room and start going through his stuff. And while I was going through his stuff, I found his prayer mat, and I found a English translation of the Quran. And so I took the Quran and I started reading it, and I read the whole thing, and I was at Surah An-Nur, which is to this day is still my favorite surah. And there's this part in it where it talks about the love of God and how the love of God is like a light inside of a glass container. I forget. I'll find it for you guys, but it's amazing. It's like the most beautiful verse. And I remember I read that, and I put down the book, and I was like, I just said it. I was like, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadan Rasulullah. I was like, it makes sense. I get it. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, this really does make sense. And so and so it clicked for me. And then ever since then, I did a lot of research, and I did a lot of reading, and I'm trying to make this quick. I will make this 3 parts. It's not going to be 4, I promise. So, and I did a lot of reading, and I made the commitment, and I talked to a lot of friends, a lot of his friends. I looked into the history. I did a lot of researching on the history of Islam, and I eventually decided that was it. And I remember I didn't actually go to a mosque to say my shahada in front of or with a sheikh until I started wearing the hijab, which was about 1.5 years ago. But I said the shahada for the first time about 3.5 years ago. But I didn't actually go to a mosque and say it with a sheikh until about 1.5 years ago. And I went and I said it, and that was, I went and did that, you know, when I started wearing hijab. And, you know, ever since then, alhamdulillah, like, you know, I don't have a problem with alcohol anymore. I'm happy. I don't get depressed. I don't have that feeling of like a hole in my heart that I'm missing something, you know, alhamdulillah, like, subhanallah, like, I don't have that, and I'm so grateful because, you know, I found Islam, and Islam found me, and, you know, alhamdulillah, like, I'm on the right path now, and I'm happy, and I couldn't ask for anything more, and, you know, I don't know, I'm a different person, I'm happier now, and yeah, that's it. So I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I'm sorry, I know it was so stinking long, but I hope that it was okay and that you're not so bored. So that's my story, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.